Welcome to Trial by Wine. We take a closer look at crimes that highlight how fascinating humans can be. Schmitty, Swanny and Clarkey visit crimes and run them through their jury of three, debating both sides of the case to agree an appropriate, if totally fictitious, sentence. Please be advised, Trial by Wine may include explicit or disturbing content and will include drunken rambling. Listener discretion is advised. All right, how are we?
Very well, thank you.
Not too bad. What's happening with you guys?
Well, our big news following on from the news of, a week or so ago is Stuart resigned today. So we're going to be footloose and fancy-free soon.
Wow.
And I'll be driving up the highway to show you how to edit shows next.
There's every...
That laugh.
Yeah.
No.
No, I'm serious. Yeah, we'll drive further. We'll play Catch Us If You Can around Australia.
All right then. Well, congratulations. Well, I don't have any particular news to tell you, so Swanny,
let's get on with it.
Nothing. I've got nothing going on. It's all
All
done.
right.
All
Well,
right.
I suppose we should introduce ourselves. I'm Schmitty.
I'm Swanny.
And I'm Clarkey. And together we are
Trial
by Wine.
And what are we drinking?
Oh, on this fine Monday afternoon for my night shift with my children. And so I've got what do you call that? I think the influencers would put their hand behind it and show you like that, which, of course, our viewers cannot listen to. But
yes, it's a Coke Zero. What a surprise. And boys?
Well, we're having a 2008 unoaked Cabernet from Grayland Estate in Margaret River.
oh,
Delicious.
So a nice old one for
the kids have been on camp there the
celebration.
last 2 weeks. I didn't bring anything back.
Oh,
with
have
them.
they?
They have, indeed.
Selfish.
Schmitty,
Anyway, Schmitty, what about you?
I have a soda stream with cordial in it because I have a feeling we're going to do a few of these tonight. And after 5 hours of recording the other day of the worst,
The back-to-back.
most horrific story that I think we've covered
It was
to date.
nightmare.
We've done a few shockers.
I know,
but
it
that
was up there, wasn't it?
That literally, I wouldn't say gave me a nightmare, but I woke up in the night because I had had a few too many to drink while we were recording. It wasn't until the second one that I was like, oh, God, really? And I woke up and all I could think about was the Red Ripper. And I don't mean the Allen Sweet. And
You were thinking, why did they change it from Redskin? Why?
Yeah.
Why? That woke me up in the middle of
No.
the night.
No, and all I could think about, and I got a little bit scared, and then I had to calm myself
sweetheart.
down
Wow.
and say, all right, that man isn't here. But because I'd looked at
honey.
images of him and he was so scary looking too, I just thought, oh. So I've decided to go a little dry to start off with, and then we'll see how we go. I'll grab something in a break, I'm sure.
I bet you felt nice and safe having your knives above your bed, though, the way you do.
Oh, I really should get some knives
I
above
forgot
my
about
bed.
that.
The longer we
Yeah,
do
I
this,
forgot
the
about
more I think I actually do need to have some kind of weapon of choice
Yeah.
close to me. Just for those moments when I wake up thinking, is the Red
Red
Ripper in my
Ripper.
house? Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway. So, Swanny, is it your story today?
It is. It is. And just at that point, that was perfect. I had something that I wanted to work
So
with.
before we started recording, we were teasing, well, I often tease Swanny about her process.
Yes.
Swanny is a little old school and she
I'm
prints
totally
a
old school.
whole lot of stuff out and then she refers to it as she goes, whereas Clucky and I tend to we two screen it. We tend to manage with a computer and two monitors.
I must say, I'm very
Do
impressed.
you really?
That
Is
you
that
can
is that why it works?
That's my setup.
Oh, I
Oh, no, I
didn't
do it
know.
on an iPad, so I can sit there and flick through.
Yeah,
So
but you're looking at us through the laptop, yeah, and then
True.
you've got an iPad which you're using as your
Yeah.
your base. So that's how I do it. That's how he does it. But Swanny, she likes paper.
she likes to wing it a bit more.
I do.
And
like
as
to do
I
it a bit
said,
more.
whose story is it? She turned to her stack
And
and
it fell
started
out.
to reorder them.
Well, anyway, I do have a crime coming off the back of Clarkey's Russian nightmare of last week, double episode nightmare.
Double whammy.
I
yeah.
didn't really know where to go, but I knew that I didn't want to go towards a serial killer. I thought that would probably be a step too far.
Just too much.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
there is a murder involved.
Oh, that's nice.
Yes, but it is not.
God, I
Sing.
can't believe I laughed at that.
No,
That's
I
awful.
know it's so hard to know where to sort of the territory to start to work in again after being so low or so dark with that
awful.
last. It was.
Oh, it just didn't stop, did it?
I know, and I don't know how to deal with that. But anyway, I would describe this crime as potentially every parent's worst nightmare. It's
Oh, God.
I quite often like to bring to the table something that when I've read about it, watched it, that it's sort of elicited a response in me where I think, oh my God. Like, I think when a crime sort of speaks to you a little bit, you sort of have a little bit more interest in it. And it's just a crime that was basically, we'll come on to it, but, someone's life has been stolen from them under really horrendous circumstances. And it was someone whose, life was ahead of them. And I think that, as any human, it would be, pretty upsetting. But as a mum, I was doing a lot of it yesterday as it was Mother's Day. And I was thinking, oh my God, it would change your life and your view on things for forever, because it's very unpleasant at best. So our crime takes us to Los Angeles. So my sources are CNN.com, news.com.au, the Los Angeles Times, the Daily Bruin, NBC Los Angeles, and Death in the Dorms, which is a documentary series. So you're kind of given something away. Yeah.
Is this the story of Freddy Krueger or something? It sounds like it could be one of those horror movies.
No, not quite. But it's set just outside the campus of UCLA. And it's interesting because I went to UCLA. I've worked out in, I think it was 1999. And I don't remember a great deal about it, but I just know that I had to get a top. And I remember going to, I don't know I can't remember anything about it really, except the fact that I went and got this sweatshirt and I wore it, honestly, for about 20 years. And it was a proper UCLA one with like the felt letters on it. And I loved it. But I never really understood about, how campuses are set up in the US and how they work. And I still don't know an awful lot about it, but I probably know a little bit more than I did then. But UCLA is in sort of like an area of Los Angeles called Westwood, and they sort of describe it as sort of like this like little sort of college town, which seems quite weird within LA, but that's where the campus is. And to be honest, the campus is really quite beautiful. Like if you look at some of the buildings, you can imagine the money that they've put into it. It is an incredible campus, and it's a university that attracts people from obviously California and Los Angeles, but certainly all across the US and certainly across the US and internationally as well. So I think to go to UCLA would be something that you really want to do and would be a pretty exciting time in a young person's life. But we're going to find out that it probably wasn't the ending for one family that they certainly thought it was going to be when they sent their child there. So I'm going to start early morning on September 21, 2015. And we're starting in an apartment block off campus, but it is a sorority house's apartment building, a complex. So I don't know if they own it as such, but certainly the girls that live within it, it's not the sorority as such, but a group of girls from a sorority live there together. So it's not the actual house, but it's just a small apartment building. And if I understand correctly, within that street of Westwood, it's a similar setup. The whole place is just full of students, right? It must be so much fun. Been, a great place to live. And the night before, all of the girls in the building were together because they were getting ready for sorority rush. And I'd heard that before, but I had to look it up because I didn't know what it actually was.
Sorority rush?
Apparently, I had to look it up. A sorority rush is when they try and encourage people to join their sorority. So I didn't realise that was quite how it worked.
Like a recruitment program.
That's the word I was after. Yeah. They're trying to recruit. But it is like in a movie. Like they are literally cutting out things and making signs and getting having wines while they do it.
Or
but
cruises.
Vodka cruises, no doubt, or something cheap and cheerful, I'm sure. But they're all a group of girls together, and they are drinking and getting ready for the sorority rush, which is going to happen the next day. So if we look at like a school year, a US school year, beginning of the university year in September, after the summer, it'll be early in the year. I don't know exactly how early, but very early on September. As I said, in the apartment, all of these girls are getting ready, and they all sort of head off to bed pretty late, like, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, and everyone's tucked into their beds, but not Sarah Muir. Sarah Muir has been up early because her boyfriend had been visiting her from Northern California, and she had to take him back to the airport because he'd been there for her 21st and he was flying out on a very early flight. So after she dropped him off at LAX, she headed back home. It was still dark when she got back to the apartment building or complex. It's not really apartment building. Think of it as it's a bit older than that. Like something more out of low rise, couple of stories, and like a central sort of area, but apartments like that.
Melrose Place-ish.
Correct. That's what I think of. Maybe not that big even, but yeah, something similar to that. So it was still dark when she returned, and she was on the second floor of the apartment building. And she said that her clock read 5:30 when she got back to the house, the apartment. As she was
in the morning or in the evening?
Oh, definitely in the morning. So a lot of them haven't been in bed that long, to be honest. Yeah, it's early. She's got him off the airport and she's back. When she was at the front door, she was about to turn the key. She heard a noise in the stairwell below her, and she turned to look back and she saw a man running away. She made a mental note of what he was wearing. He had a red and blue tank top, dark jeans, and a baseball cap. And she was really a little bit disturbed by the encounter. And I think she called her boyfriend and, sort of had him on the phone. We all have done that. You've got someone to talk to because everybody else is asleep, right? But she's been a bit sort of, why is that guy running and why is he doing that? And it just didn't feel quite right. Anyway, so she has a chat to the boyfriend and she thinks, never mind. He puts her mind at ease and she says, I've just decided to go back to sleep. But about 45 minutes later, she was awoken by a lady's screams and a barking, whimpering dog. So she called 911. And I mean, good on her for doing that. She didn't sort of hang about. She just didn't feel right and she was scared. So she called 911 and she started to describe the ruckus that she had seen earlier with the man before to the operator and saying, I think someone needs to come out here. I know that the girl in the apartment below me has a dog and I can hear a woman screaming and I can hear a dog sort of whimpering. So as Sarah answered the operator's questions, a high-pitched noise that sounded like a woman screaming can be heard in the background of the phone call.
I'm getting chills.
And that's the transcript from like the 911 call.
She's quite good though, isn't she? Like to make the mental note and then to call 911. Do you reckon she's done it before or she's just a natural?
I don't know, to be honest. I was surprised that she was so forthright to do that and she didn't go and get somebody else first or whatever else. She was up and she just went, that's not right.
It might be because seeing that guy really spooked her.
Yeah,
so,
maybe, And she's like, something's not right now. I know that something's not right. So she makes the call and the person on the other end of the phone is actually quite helpful and they say, right, we're going to send someone out right away and I'll just stay with you on the phone. Can you hear them coming? Can you let me know when you can hear the sirens and stuff? And she does. And she said, okay, I can hear them now. I can hear them there, so, and she's being sort of made feel a little bit more comfortable because the lady's on the phone with her, keeping her ready, saying they're on their way. Can you hear them? It's all okay. Everything's all right. They're going to be there, whatever else. Anyway, so 2 police cars arrive with 2 police officers each in them, and they come out and they go to her and they say to her, what's happening? She said, I heard a woman screaming and I could hear a dog, and the girl downstairs, has a dog. And they say, okay, we'll go and look. So the 2 sets of police go around the complex with their torches looking into all of the rooms because I don't think there's like bars or anything like that. You can just I think there's lots of windows that open onto balconies. I imagine, sort of full length window doors.
Doors, like French doors, yeah.
They go around and have a look. They spend 6 minutes there and then they leave because they're unable to see that there's any trouble. There's no signs of break and entry. They don't go back to Sarah and say to her, look, we've put your mind at ease. Okay, they actually just leave. So she's looking outside going, oh, they're leaving. I guess it's all right. Yep.
Jeepers. That sounds very unusual.
So there's no more screaming. So after that initial screaming, it has stopped. So it's not when they've arrived. There's screaming. So there's nothing that they can see or hear. And they're like, right, they didn't knock on any of the doors.
That's it. They didn't knock on a door.
Yeah. And they didn't, would Sarah have given her apartment number and stuff?
She spoke to them, but she didn't. But she said the one that was concerning her was the girl who lived downstairs. She said, I thought the scream was coming from there. Mm-hmm. I did read somewhere else or later on that she said that, look, sometimes it's a bit tricky. There's an echo because of the way the apartments sort of face each other. So perhaps it did come from somewhere else, but I know the girl downstairs had a dog and heard a dog. So she had given pretty good directions, but that when they went past that apartment, they looked in and they couldn't see anything with their torch. So the decision was made that they would leave and off they went.
It's just
effective policing.
Poor form.
Perhaps. I mean, I think the fact that she'd heard such loud, I think so. Yeah. I think the fact that she'd heard screams and the dog, I think the combination and saying, like, I know the woman downstairs has a dog, I thought that was pretty fair to say, look, I think
wonder if they even bothered to knock on the front door.
They didn't. They didn't.
That's weird. That
But
bit
they
I
said they
find
put a
odd.
flashlight into the living room. They couldn't see
Yeah,
anything.
but if there's someone in the bedroom dying, or
Too
you
late.
you knock on the door.
Yeah.
Correct.
At 6:30 a.m., 7
Evidence
minutes
of
after they
effort.
arrived, I'd said 6:04, 7 minutes after the officers cleared the scene. No evidence of a crime, one of the officers had written in their log.
Well, I mean, without looking, no evidence.
Correct.
That's right.
Meanwhile, poor Sarah Moore upstairs is quite shaken, and she's looking out the window, so she can no longer see the police. She can see that they've sort of gone. And she said, I just felt really nervous and uncomfortable, and I felt upset that they hadn't come back to tell me that everything was sort of okay, so I didn't really know what was going on. I just had this sort of uneasy feeling.
As they were driving away, did she go out on the balcony and go, "You're shit"?
No, she went defective
defective
detective. Again.
Yes.
At this point, she tries texting and calling some of the other occupants of the units below, who are, obviously students and sorority sisters, and she doesn't hear back from any of them because they're all asleep. No one else has obviously heard the screams that she'd heard. And there's a variety of reasons that may have been the case. They had been drinking. One of them says that, she slept with a fan on that was like 2 fans, was super loud. A lot of them have these white, I know that sounds like I'm making this up, but a lot of them use these, it's a very American thing, these white noise.
I could imagine in a university dormitory kind of thing, wanting white noise because there would be noise all the time, I imagine.
I get that impression that there's sort of so many comings and goings of people, but also I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the people that I know, but I know a few Americans from when we lived ironically in London, but a lot of them use white noise machines to sleep. They've just sort of, it's a thing, and I don't know many Australians.
I use an app.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it white noise, but I suppose it is. I use a rain app that sounds like.
Is that all night or
rain
just to get you
falling.
to sleep?
About 20 minutes usually till I'm in deep sleep, and then it turns itself off. Sometimes if I'm not fully in full sleep, when it turns itself off, I wake up. But I use it because Boof snores, and so
it blocks out the noise.
It blocks that out because he doesn't snore regularly.
Yeah, so
he makes all these bizarre noises, and I just lie there going, "Oh, for God's sake, I'm going to smother that dog." So
constant noise is better than on and off, isn't it?
On and off, that's right. Yeah, so you just get this rain noise, and I go off nicely. So yeah, I know what you're talking about.
If it's raining, do you use the app?
I have actually, because sometimes the rain.
Doesn't
you get
last.
a bit of rain and it doesn't last. It's not constant. That's right.
And it falls mainly on the plane.
That's right, especially in Spain.
Yeah, so, well, I'm glad that you sort of know that that's a thing and that you use it, because I think that, a lot of them seem to sort of have these kind of things that they use, and, if you don't sort of buy into it or understand it, I don't think you realise just what its job is to block out other noises and other interference and to get you
There's
exactly
murders going on everywhere. I just need a good night's sleep.
Or just get a white noise machine. So Sarah tried texting and calling the other occupants of the other apartments without success. And at one point she yelled out a nickname of one of the girls. She yelled out Andy, which is short for Andrea. Andrea is the girl with the dog. Again, no response. And, when she yelled out Andy's name, nothing. So she went into her roommate, Erica, who had just come into the kitchen, told her about the screams that she'd heard and the fact that she'd called the police and that police had come and they'd gone without sort of letting her know. So her, flatmate said to her, well, don't worry about it. I'm sure it's all fine. They've done their job. Just don't worry, sweetheart. It's all going to be totally fine.
Exactly.
Don't worry about it. Which I imagine most people would probably do. Well, if the police have been, then what have you got to worry about?
I reckon I'd go down to see if the dog was barking, because the dog would normally bark if
you knocked on the door.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd be too scared to walk around. I don't know what I'd do. I'd definitely
go
call
with
the police.
her. I'd say, come down.
Let's go together.
Let's go. Now there's two of us.
Yeah.
Can we go and have a look?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
or not.
Or not.
Could get murdered. But
or just say, well, I've done my bit. The police have done their bit.
It's only moments later that she hears a loud bang come from downstairs. So she sprints to the balcony outside her bedroom and looks down, and she sees the same man that she'd seen earlier that morning, and he's jumping from the balcony outside Andy's room. She also saw smoke pouring from the apartment. So Andy calls 911 for a second time, and now it's just after 7, so it's only an hour after she'd initially called. Jesus. She says on the transcript, I just called the cops about a girl screaming, and I just saw the guy who was in there run out of the room, and it looks like her room is on fire, she said, according to the transcript. When the 911 operator asked her for the race of the suspect, Sarah replied, I already did this. She went on to describe a young man wearing jeans, a tank top, a baseball cap, matching the description she'd given earlier that morning, but he also had a red blanket over him. What colour was the tank top? The operator asked. We need an ambulance, Sarah responded.
And a fire brigade.
Yeah. As she's calling the police, downstairs in that apartment, people are waking up because they can hear the fire alarms now. And as the girls wake up who are flatmates, they come to a room and that room is on fire and it is their flatmate and her name is Andy. So they try to open the door. They can't. The room is totally engulfed in flames and they are unable to get Andy out of the room and they have to run for their own lives as it totally goes up in flames.
Oh, God.
So the fire was so intense that when the fire brigade got there, it took them 30 minutes to put the fire out and it was actually in one room. They found the body of Andrea Del Vesco on top of her bed. Her face and fingers were burned so badly that she was initially listed as a Jane Doe.
Oh, my God.
And she would be positively identified through dental records.
Oh.
She suffered at least 19 sharp force injuries. Some were superficial cuts, other were stab wounds. And they found on either side of her throat, there were 2 very deliberate stab wounds into her carotid arteries, which they said you'd die fairly quickly after that because it's the blood that goes to your brain. Yeah, they were deemed, rapidly fatal. Also in the room was her dog, and it was her beloved Chihuahua mixed with a terrier, and the dog's name is
Bruiser.
No, you're gonna have to listen to this because I had to listen to it a couple of times. Shay Panda. I don't know why a dog is called Shay Panda, but everybody knew Shay Panda because she had Shay Panda with her all the time. But what's important to note is that Shay Panda is alive.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Is Shay Panda fireproof?
Shay Panda was found at the foot of her
found
bed,
tiny
singed and gasping for breath. The comatose,
but low down.
Yes,
so
correct. So probably missed the fire and wasn't set on fire, I think also is a point to make. The comatose animal was taken to a vet, and we'll come back to Shay Panda a little later. Yes. Because Andrea's body was so badly charred in the fire, they couldn't determine an exact time of death. And the absence of soot in her airways and relatively low level of carbon monoxide in her blood indicates she was most likely deceased prior to the ignition of the fire. The blaze, an arson investigator would later testify, was initially set by someone who dumped a trash can onto the bed and placed an open flame to its contents. Andrea Del Vesco. Andrea Del Vesco was a beautiful girl and she was a senior. So she was in 4th year at UCLA and she was a member of UCLA's Pi Beta Pi. Now I've read it twice as different things. I've read it as Pi Beta Pi and Pi Beta Pi. So given I don't know a lot about sororities, I can't tell you which one is correct, but let's just say she was a sorority sister. And she had come from Texas and her mum had wanted to go to university in Chicago with her big brother, but Andy wanted to study psychology and she was very adventurous and she travelled a load. She travelled a load with her parents. I think they were probably quite comfortable, but I think that more to the point, Andrea did lots of things for charity. So was already going to like Peru when she was 16, working and helping, underprivileged children and communities. So she'd done loads and loads of sort of philanthropy and, a lot of, I think, sorority life or Greek life, as they call it. I think there's definitely the party side of it that we all see portrayed in movies and stuff, but a lot of it's supposedly about, social connections and doing good for the community and doing good for other people. So she was looked upon as being sort of an exemplary young woman who really cared and had a lot of compassion for other people. It wasn't just about partying or whatever else. But that's not to say that wasn't part of her personality. She was just a little ray of sunshine who everybody loved and got along with everybody and did a lot to help people. And going to UCLA and studying psychology was her dream, and she really loved it. And as I said, she was already a senior, and life was good. Her poor parents receive a phone call on the 21st of September to say that their daughter has died in a fire and that they need to make their way to Los Angeles, and that
her daughter has died in a fire.
Correct.
Is that what they suspected at the time, or have they?
No, they just didn't really give them any more detail, I think. So they get them on the flight, and I think that they arrive that night, and they're greeted by the police. And again, I don't even think at that point it's a bit unclear as to what the police even tell them. And what I found really odd was at one point, she's got a younger sister and an older brother, but her younger sister was at school. And her little sister gets a text from like one of her sister's friends saying, I'm sorry to hear that your sister's been, killed in a fire or whatever. And like that's how the sister finds out before a mum can even. I mean, just things like that, which is exactly what must happen a lot. The way social media and the way we communicate now. It's not like it used to be where they could control, I think, a little bit more information how it goes. Now it's like once it's out there, it's out. And they didn't really make much of that in the documentary I watched, but that really bothered me. I thought, imagine finding out any news of that nature, let alone that, you know, your family hasn't spoken to, your sister's been killed. And at that point, she doesn't even know that how she's come to that ending, but we'll come on to that. They arrive, they speak with the police, and then they actually go to and that is.
Can we give Shay Panda another name?
I've come used to it. Bothered me to start with, but now I've come around.
It's ridiculous. I can't have a dog name. I mean, what would you do when you had to call it? You couldn't be.
Like, I don't know. I feel like there must be like an in-joke or some reference that I just don't understand because I don't know what Shay Panda. I don't know the joke. You know, there must be something, right? And I think, oh God, am I supposed to know what Shay Panda means? Then I thought, is it something to do with like one of those? Maybe dog.
It was a purebred, and that was his name.
No, it was terrier and chihuahua. I don't think it didn't look like a mutt.
Right.
No offense, Shay Panda. No offense, Shay Panda. Sorry, Shay Panda.
Shay was its first name.
I don't think it was. It was called Shay Panda. They always called it Shay Panda. I don't drop the panda.
All right.
So they arrive.
It's ridiculous.
Poor
you
Shay
can't have a ridiculous
really
character like that in a serious story like this.
I know it is a problem for me too, but
it's emotionally traumatizing because I go from being sad to being annoyed, and then I hear Shay Panda. I'm like, what is that?
How does that?
Just give it another name.
Poor Shay Panda.
Phoenix.
All right.
Can we call it Phoenix?
I don't think it's going to rise from the ashes.
Oh, you reckon it's going to get finished?
How about?
Let's listen then, hey.
Sans Phoenix. So now it's got two names again.
Oh,
Sorry.
So Andy's mum is Leslie Del Vesco, and Leslie says that as she's heading to the animal hospital, she says, I know that Andy's dead. You know, I've been told that she's dead, but I just didn't want to accept it, and I wanted to see her body, and they wouldn't sort of let her. We know why, but I don't think in her mind she's not aware of what's happened, right? And the scale to which, you know, her body.
Do they have that right to not let her see her daughter's body?
Well, the police told her, I think they were doing it to protect her at the time, but they told her they wanted to hold her one last time. The police said, we cannot allow that until the autopsy has been completed, which would make sense.
Well, that does make sense.
Yeah,
so she couldn't anyway at that initial point. So she can't see the body, and she heads off to the animal hospital to see Shay Panda. And she says the doctor came over and said, she is suffering. We all agreed it was better if we just let Shay Panda go to join Andrea, she said. We said goodbye to Shay Panda and sent her to kiss Andrea for us. And then it hit me. If Andrea was involved in that same fire, what her body must have looked like. So this poor dog, you could only imagine how singed and just holding on to life. And that was really sad because I could so imagine someone's beloved pet suffering hugely, having to put the dog down and then go to Andrea. You know, I could so imagine that whole scene playing out. I just found that really sort of touched me. I thought, well, that's really sad. You know, the poor doggy and this beautiful young girl, they've lost both of them and well, off together, wherever that may be.
It wouldn't be that they went, there's no way we're going to adopt Shay Panda, so we're just going to have to move it on.
Not with a name like that.
Look, if we could
do on Swanny's face as he started to say that.
So naughty.
So inappropriate.
Shay Panda. Oh.
I'm not doing that.
I'm sorry. Euthanize the dog or change the name. There are options, but I can't. Yeah. We can't.
We cannot adopt a Shay Panda. No, I will not. I will not. We're all traumatized right now, and that would tip me over. So Shay Panda was quite badly burnt.
Injured by the sound of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm surprised Shay Panda didn't die, to be honest, being such a small little thing, but she didn't.
I missed that when I was having all my Shay Panda jokes. Probably even more inappropriate now. I thought Shay Panda was fine and was going to live on.
No, I shouldn't think so. Not when the room was so engulfed in flames that it took half an hour to get in there.
Okay, so at this point, you know,
I just want to go back on that point, not about Shay Panda, but when you were talking earlier about they said that a trash can had been put on the bed and set alight.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem extreme enough to create
that
the
fire
intensity.
that did.
Yeah.
I
So it
agree.
sounds more like someone would have used some kind of accelerant. Yeah. And when you said her face and her fingers were burnt in particular and she was unrecognisable, I just wondered whether or not someone had poured lighter fluid or something on her. Yeah.
Would it depend what her bedding was made out of?
Yeah, polyester.
Because
because
there's a bit of that, and then you get the mattress and mattresses. Not that you're allowed to burn them, and not that I ever have.
But
I have heard. I have heard they go up pretty quickly.
I can attest to the fact that I've never burned a mattress.
They go from mattress to coils super quick.
Yep. Is that right?
And
that's
really
that's terrible.
Smoke.
Remember they used to for years lots of campaigns about not smoking in bed because a lot of people would accidentally set fire to themselves.
I'm surprised they weren't more fire retardant. I love the word retardant.
A lot of smoke too, to your point. So poor old Shay Panda sitting there breathing.
And really nasty smoke.
Yes, that's not good. Poor Andy and now Shay Panda deceased. And we've got Andrea's body with the coroner and a mum and dad just wondering what's going on. And at this point, they do start dealing with the police, obviously, and they're trying to get a handle on what happened. But the police are being quite reticent to speak to them and certainly being open with correct. And they were
been negligent.
They've said in looking in retrospect that they thought that they were really sort of kept at arm's length and they were made to feel it was inappropriate to ask the questions that they were asking, and they weren't helpful, and we can understand why, but that's what is going on in the background. At the same time that this is going on, there's obviously an investigation that has started, and UCLA and the newspaper that they have is the Daily Bruin. There's a whole heap of chaos on campus because someone's been murdered in fire. They don't know what's happened. They're trying to work out what's going on. People want to find out what's happening, and all they have to go on is the fact that when Sarah saw the guy jump out and he had the same description as the one that she'd told them earlier, she then actually left the apartment building and she ran down to follow him. And what she caught was a red car leaving. And on the back, I know, she saw a small red car leave, and she was, because she's a Greek girl, and when a Greek girl, a sorority girl, she saw a Greek sticker on the back, which was for another fraternity, which was a male, can you call
sorority.
it? A male sorority. Sorority is for sisters.
College, whatever those things are.
A boys one, a male one, So she was able to say to the police, right, this is what the guy looked like. I ran outside after him. He was there twice. He had a red blanket around him. It's a red car. I can't remember the make, but I know the sticker on the back of the car.
Do you want me to go and put some dust for prints as well while I'm doing your job?
You can
just give me that bottle and a little brush.
She's like CCTV.
She's on it. So
Sarah CCTV.
So Sarah impresses me greatly in this whole thing.
Yes.
So that's what they've got. That's what they've sort of got to work with. But in the meantime, another piece of information has come to light, and it's so interesting. The headlines of a girl that's been killed in a fire, and now a few days later, we've got one which was sorority girl Andrea Del Vesco from UCLA's, now it's Pi Beta Pi, killed over drugs. And another headline which is drug dealing charges were pending against UCLA student found dead. So let's explore. Is that
fact or is that headline?
Well, it's a little bit of both. It is fact. She was in a little bit of trouble, our Andy. And it starts off with a sorority girl was due to face court today on drug dealing charges. However, her charred body has been found with police suspecting she was murdered. So in the same time frame that this has happened, she was due to go to court.
Right.
It's the same day
to give evidence, or
well, this is where it gets a little bit cloudy. I'll tell you what she was arrested for.
Dealing on someone else's behalf. She's not a Colombian.
Correct.
Yes, exactly. And it's kind of it's dealt with differently between what she was charged with and what the view of her peers was around this. And I think that when I tell you that, the penny will drop and go, oh yeah, I totally get that. So
tell me that then.
Andy Del Vesco, 21, a member of UCLA's Pi Beta Pi sorority, was arrested in June, so now this is September, on charges of possessing ecstasy, LSD, methamphetamine, and hallucinogenic mushrooms with intent to sell.
Right.
Yeah, right.
But she pleaded not guilty to all charges and was due back in court today, so that would have been...
Hang on, so when she pleads guilty...
That week,
when she pleads not guilty to all charges...
Yeah.
is she saying she wasn't in possession, or is she saying she wasn't in possession with intent to sell?
To sell. I think it's with intent to sell. It's with intent to
so
sell.
She had party drugs.
Correct.
But possibly for personal use.
Yeah.
Quite possibly. So the article's trying to whip this up, and they talk about the fact that there's going to be, retribution from someone higher up the chain in the drug dealing world, which kind of makes sense.
I feel like that's already happened.
Yeah. And they've got like a private investigator says, it's really quite common in the handling of narcotics cases that when they look at things, a major danger for arrested drug sellers, if the charges are true, he put in, is the fear of higher-ups in the illicit drug delivery chain that will be identified. So the motive is simply this. If she's silent, she cannot testify against anyone else. But what this did was it set off another sort of reaction with people where all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, if she's a drug dealer, she just deserves to be dead. People were quick to turn. I mean, that was in a couple of days. It was within the week. She was supposed to have gone to court that week. But when they were going to her peers and the sorority sisters, and actually she had a job at Jamba Juice, which is like Boost Juice. She had done an internship at a legal firm during the summer. And
I was thinking Jamba Juice could have been her dealing front, because get on the juice at Jamba Juice.
I like it. And the overwhelming response was, yes, she did have the drugs. The drugs were to go to festivals with her friends. So was she going to sell them? Well, yes, she might have given them to her friends and they were going to give her some money for it because she kind of had done it, but that's what they were using them for.
But
she wasn't
hanging
not
around
a drug
on street
dealer.
Corners.
Not at all.
That's
When we go to like
dealing.
Coachella or something and thinking there,
It's still dealing.
It is. It's not right, but
but
it's within, when you look at it through the lens of being murdered, all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, was she really involved in something terribly seedy? Was she a drug dealer on campus? No, she wasn't any of those things. But her poor parents are now going, what did she do? Could you imagine?
Talk about besmirching the character of someone who's just passed away.
And it totally
besmirching.
It totally
That's
changed.
what I said, besmirching.
Yeah, what is that?
Not everyone's perception of her, but the public perception did swing a little bit at that point based on, her now being identified as a potential drug dealer.
Yeah.
Whilst that's all happening, and everyone's look over here, look over here, look over here, she's involved in drugs. Fortuitously, the police are on campus, obviously interviewing lots of people, and two young men come across to a police officer outside Andy's building and say, look, I don't know if it's of any interest or any connection, but on the morning of the 21st of September, we got burgled. And they were like, what did they take? And they said, they took a couple of laptops, some Sonos speakers, and I think maybe there was some alcohol. And they said, okay, then thank you very much, took down notes, whatever else. And then one of the detectives realised that with Sonos speakers, to be able to use them, you have to register them. So he got in touch with Sonos and said, should anyone re-register them so they're able to use them? Here's the, identify ID number or whatever else. Can you please let us know?
Clever.
Absolutely.
So he didn't turn up to the initial 911 call then, did he?
Clearly, he's using his brains.
He's a detective. He's more senior.
No, precisely. The investigation continues, and I think maybe 2 days after that, they get a call from Sonos to say, actually, someone has tried to re-register this device and they are in Fresno. Now, Fresno's come up in other stories we've done. It comes up a lot. I don't know why. Not the most illustrious place, I guess. So Fresno is a couple of hours north of LA. It's inland, and the police need to head up there. And they head up there and they
stay for 6 minutes and then they turn around and leave.
Without knocking on
no evidence of a crime here.
That's right. Sorry,
go and get some donuts, turn around and go back.
So it was 2 days after Andrea's murder that the Sonos speakers representative called to tell the police that someone had tried to register.
Oh.
And those stolen speakers now had a new email address attached to them. So with the email address, the detective had a name of someone in Fresno who was obviously connected to them. So they drove up to Fresno, and that was when they went to a house. And when they got into the house, they said to this guy who was living there, there's an email address that's connected to this house. Do you have these Sonos speakers? And he went, well, no, I don't. But my flatmate said that he was going to LA for the weekend to hang out with his friend, and he brought them back. So maybe it's something to do with him. Yeah. Actually, now that I think of it, so his roommate said this, my flatmate was down in Los Angeles visiting a friend at UCLA.
Now that I think of it, he came back covered in blood and smelling of smoke.
Yeah.
Now that I think of it.
Yeah. He told me that he killed someone.
Yeah.
So the guy that they're obviously speaking to is ruled out quite quickly, but they're very keen to speak to his flatmate, and his flatmate is a man by the name of Alberto Medina, and Alberto Medina is
Funky cold.
Cold Medina, and he's only 22. He's a Fresno State University student with no criminal record.
22?
Yeah, and they wait for him to come home and they interview him, and at first, of course, he knows nothing about anything, and then finally admits, yeah, I was involved. I stole the speakers and a laptop and alcohol because, we were down there partying and we're going to people's houses. And I get the impression that it's a bit of it's obviously young people, it's a party town. They kind of just wander around, and not just Medina, but you look for parties. So you're in an area like, what's going on here? Pop in here. Yeah, correct.
Right.
So he was down.
It could be like a whole lot of university parties, and so you just go from one to the next, maybe.
Yeah. So he was genuinely visiting his friend, and his friend was Eric Marquez, and Eric was a UCLA student, and again, no criminal record, but he said that he was just down there, and they were partying, and just that's what they did. They were going out having a great weekend.
No, they weren't.
No, they weren't.
Doesn't make any sense.
They were not. What we find out is that when he starts to admit that he had been there, then he starts to, he starts lying and say, where he was, what they were doing, where they were going. But what we know is that Sarah Moore made the 911 call about the fire and about the suspect fleeing the scene at around 7 o'clock in the morning. And he had said, at one point, we went home, we had a sleep, we'd been out partying, but then, we were asleep between these hours. We must have been asleep. Sarah says that she sees the individual, remember, jumping over Andrea's balcony into the courtyard, and remember he has the red blanket. So they've got Medina, and they want to speak to Marquez as well, so they get the pair of them together, and as usual, it's a case of he said, I did this, I did that. We were so intoxicated. But it basically, it comes down to a point where you understand that the pair of them were definitely, going around to one party, going to the, then they, I think, particularly Medina, he started stealing things. So he's obviously breaking and entering. He's gone into the apartment across the road from Andy, and then he goes across to Andy's apartment. And what transpires is he gets in because I don't think her balcony door was locked. That's there because there was no break and entry. But he goes in there and he takes a knife from her knife block. Oh, and I just don't know why he had to murder her the way he did. I still don't understand that.
Do you mean he didn't know her?
No, he did not know her. It was totally random.
Broken into her house.
Oh, my God.
That makes it 10 times worse, doesn't it?
Was he on meth? He's a meth head?
No, I don't think so. No, that never comes up. I don't think so. And I, remember that he's been in there once, so I don't know if
criminal background.
Remember he was jumping out. She saw him going.
Yeah. And then
she saw him once, and he's gone back in. Again, not sure what's happened there. But what he does is he goes in, no criminal background. He's stolen stuff from across the road, and he goes in. I can only assume she fought back or she did something. He had scratches and that on him, but I still am at a loss. If someone had a knife and was going to scare me, take what you want, you do that. But he murders her, and what they believe happens is whilst he's stabbing her, she's screaming. They can hear the dog barking because the girl, I think it was Sarah, she said in all the time she'd known Andy, she'd never heard the dog make any noise at all. That dog had never barked, squawked.
How could it be a cross Chihuahua Terrier and not bark? That is incredible.
It's happy.
It's happy and being carried around like a handbag dog, probably.
Yeah, it's like
no other dogs around.
Legally Blonde. That's all I can picture. Yeah,
pandas don't bark.
Oh, so. So, whilst Medina is in there, Eric is in the car, in the red car, waiting, and he lives about a mile away. So they were just sort of going around being opportunistic. So I don't understand how we go from stealing something to this brutal murder. It's horrendous, right? And, stabbing her in, on a throat either side to make, I don't know if he did it because he knew that was what would happen, but you can only hope that would out. But she really, it was awful. She was when they found her, they could identify that she'd had a sports bra on but no pants. She had nothing on below. So I don't know if he had tried to rape her, but there's every chance he probably did.
Well, I'm wondering, when you were saying why would he do it, I wonder whether or not he tried to rape her. Yeah. She fought back and killed her.
Yeah, I think that's where it's at. And because I don't know, there was nothing that was stolen as such from her. Because remember, he was really only he's got the knife from the kitchen, I think, and gone to her bedroom and been in that bedroom. So the other girls were in the apartment, the ones who couldn't hear it. Yeah, they didn't hear it. One of them said she had 2 full-blown fans on.
Yeah. Right.
I don't know the setup or how it works.
I kind of understand how they couldn't hear it. It's just the horror of it the being happening next to you.
So they didn't know that.
Worse is what I'm saying.
Correct. Exactly. So when they went to, because the fire alarms did wake them up. When they got each other and went to go and get Andy, and they couldn't get her out of the room because it was totally engulfed in flames. It was already all done. So they didn't actually know what had happened before that either.
No.
And so this whole door was probably shut.
Yeah, of course. Of course. God. And they also think that when the police, so she's murdered and then the police arrive, and the assumption has to be that because she was quiet at that point and they couldn't see when they looked, they reckon they looked into her bedroom and that she wasn't on her bed, but there was blood under the bed, so he got her body onto the floor, I think. But because there was no movement, no yelling, no anything, although the dog would have whinnied, but you might have heard that, they didn't, the police. They think that he just went, okay, well, now what am I going to do? I'm going to have to cover my crime. And so it went from, trying to rape her potentially to brutally murdering her to going, okay, well, I've got to get rid of this crime scene. And then that's when
I figured that's why I set fire.
But there's no talk about an accelerant or anything. I don't know why it was so incredibly effective. I guess it would depend on what was in her bin.
I think a mattress would do it.
Would go up.
That's what I've heard. So are we thinking attempted rape or possible rape, murder, runoff, comeback, fire, or...
No, I don't.
No, run off earlier because he was trying to break in somewhere else when Sarah first saw him. Then
but there was screams at that point, wasn't there?
No, she sees him as she's going into the apartment building.
Right.
And he could have already been taking stuff out to the car or whatever. Remember because Eric's outside. Then
she was hearing the screams and being murdered.
Yeah. No, that was when Sarah was upstairs. So
and
Sarah, she's calling them. Yeah, but let's say in the time that he's done
that was the first call.
That's the first call.
Right.
So when they got the first call, and this is what will come up is it's highly likely that she was already deceased at that point. But the next bit would not have happened. Yeah, he wouldn't have burnt down those. And that's where I think for her parents and things, they're like, even if we could have just, it was so sad. If we had been able to hug her. I mean, I don't know, I'm sure they could have, and I know they can tidy people up, but you can't.
No,
you can't. A child
from
not if you
incinerated.
needed dental records to be ID.
There's only so much, what do they call it? Mortician's putty that you can use.
God.
Here's a quote here, and it says, according to one of Andrea's roommates,
sorry,
Andrea didn't fall asleep until about 3:00 in the morning, so she was up getting ready for the rush.
Oh.
They say that he stabbed her 19 times while she was screaming. Then he was able to remain in the room while the police officers were investigating the disturbance.
I was going to ask that. So he was in the room.
Yep. He doesn't panic.
Yeah, right.
He remains in the room and then thinks about how to destroy the evidence, and he does so by setting her and her room on fire.
Oh, so they would have caught him right then and there.
Yeah.
There's no evidence of a crime, but the murderer is
still in the
room.
Correct. So when they're talking to Alberto Medina and Eric Marquez, they've obviously arrested them, and then they were able to charge them with murder. And when they got they were able to get a warrant, and of course
I'm here for you, Swanny.
So when they go back to the house in Fresno, they find it's all there. I mean, literally, it's in a plastic bag. In the plastic bag is the red blanket that he'd taken from her house. It was hers.
Her house, yeah. Right.
Her knife from her knife block. I think her underpants
clever.
Her underwear was in there.
How many days later
the
are we
knife
talking?
Had a couple of days, 2 days. I think this probably goes to day 3 or something. Day 2, yeah, not long.
Yeah, right.
All because of the Sonos thing.
Yeah.
Sonos is what's
I'm
in
just
the right
shocked.
That was really clever. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm shocked that he's got all
really
of that
dumb.
stuff. Yeah, that's
absolutely. It was
he could have dumped it anywhere on the way back, and he's taken it home.
Dumb as a box
Well,
of hammers.
I suppose he wouldn't have realised that the Sonos speakers would have been connected to this
but
crime.
what was he going to do with them?
Keep them, sell them.
Dumbass.
He was stealing. He started off
dumbass.
thieving. So
He really is.
He's
probably
dumbass.
he is.
Dumbass.
Okay, but he's probably done it before and not got caught. So whilst you said he doesn't have a criminal criminal record,
Criminal.
I couldn't say it. Yeah, I know. I haven't even had a drink. Whilst he
There's
doesn't
the
have
problem.
a criminal, I know. I'll get onto it. Criminal record. He may well have been doing this prior.
dumb as a box of hammers. You don't take the murder weapon and the blanket,
take it to your house and put it in a plastic bag in your.
No, he's a total moron.
When you've driven 2 hours north and could have
chucked it at any time.
Oh.
Yeah. It was just so easy to identify them in the end. Not only did they have the evidence of the knife, her underwear, the red blanket, her DNA, but then what was really important was how they were both involved and who was doing what. And there was all this footage of the pair of them coming and going from Eric's apartment. So there was a camera on the lift, and you see them like coming in after one sort of party or whatever else. You see them leaving. You see him come in, covered, both of them together with the red blanket over him, and they get changed to different clothes. So
when you say over them, was it over their heads trying to
the fire, trying to get away from the fire, and maybe also not identified. But I thought it perhaps was more to do with the fire. You know how you're told to cover yourself?
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but that's what I understood it to mean. Eric's saying, I was so drunk, I can't remember any of it. And they're showing him the surveillance. He's still saying, I don't remember what happened when the murder happened. And so they compared both Eric and Alberto Medina. Eric, who was the one who was sat out in the car, didn't have, scratch on him, whereas Alberto Medina did. There was also blood recovered from the red car, Medina's car, her DNA. Yeah. So that was all coming together very nicely. And at the same time, you had the parents of Andrea Del Vesco trying to get a handle on what had happened. And the dad, Arthur, was saying, my questions were so poorly received. I was rebuffed vigorously. They made me feel uncomfortable for asking. And she said that the mum said, I'm just astounded that the police left an apartment complex with a young woman saying, I can hear someone screaming and a dog, whimpering. Yeah. Something has happened and I've seen a man run from the place. Something's going on. And they didn't even knock on her door. Because if they had have knocked on her door and nothing had, or had a look, it would have been, as the mum says, look, I would assume that she possibly was already and would not have survived that. Maybe she would have. But the outcome for us as a family and for Andy's body and us being able to say goodbye to our daughter would have been a very different experience.
Yeah.
And instead I've got my daughter having to be identified by dental records. So it was just horrendous. There were disciplinary matters involving police officers in California, but they are normally shrouded in secrecy. If that sort of thing happens, they don't go into details and it's not shared publicly. So when officers are faced with potential termination, they are directed to the Board of Rights hearing, and the hearings are held. It's all done very privately. It's closed to the public and it's not shared with the public. But we do know that 2 of the officers lost their jobs, and there were 2 senior and 2 rookies, and the 2 seniors were not together. They actually, the 2 cars are, one's a senior and a rookie, and the 2 senior officers are no longer with LAPD. Yeah. But no one from the police department has ever apologised to them, and that's something that the family would really like. Yeah. They said, we understand that things happen, but we would have liked someone to, apologise to us. They've never been told the fate of the officers. It's just knowledge that 2 of them
no longer work
there. No longer, yeah.
Wouldn't that be admitting guilt to some?
Well, that's why they won't.
Yeah, but if the hat fits, if you're going to make people lose their job over it.
Yeah, but if we say that we're at fault, then he might sue us.
Yeah, I understand. But
sue the county.
Yeah, so that is pretty awful. There was someone who was, I think, someone who was representing them, and he'd been a former police officer, and he was saying, look, they actually did exercise due diligence in conducting an exterior search, but there was no evidence to a crime. So there was no suspect, there was no victim, they couldn't see anything. But we all know that if they just had made more of an effort with that one apartment, which was, she said, I think it's her, I know that she's got a dog.
If they'd knocked at the door and the other girls had woken up.
No, yeah, correct.
Bang on the door. There are other people in that apartment. She wasn't there alone.
It's not a one-bedroom joint.
And, Swanny, why do they think that Andy was dead the first time they went there?
Because there was no
silence.
They don't really know, but there was no silence. And because of the way she'd been cut here, either side of her throat, which would cut the blood flow to your brain. Apparently you die quite quickly. What's that called?
Carotid
artery. Those ones.
Artery.
Yeah. Artery. I don't know why I'm calling this 2. There should be only 1, but I apologise to anyone who's got a medical background.
Jugular and carotid.
Carotid.
Yeah. There we
go.
But
I don't understand how, it doesn't make sense to me, that whole cutting of the throat business.
I know.
Why not?
It's just vile. Why would you do it all?
Who would do that? Like, who would go, how does he even know that would make her die quickly?
Yeah, I don't know that he did or he didn't, but he
just stabbed her and just got a couple of lucky hits.
Well, I guess the bit that I'm kind of unsure of is it's quite possible that she was alive then, possibly unconscious, possibly that was
close to death.
So, well, maybe not even. Those first screams could have been related to the rape. And then when the police are coming, he's silenced her, for want of a better word.
Yep.
And then when they've left, he's gone, oh, fuck it, now I need to kill her and burn the place so that I don't get caught. It's an easier story for the police to tell if she's dead before they get there the first time.
Puts them off the hook because we couldn't have saved her life one way or the other.
Is there any evidence of that? And if not, that their negligence is much greater if she was alive the first time.
Yep. Okay, so Alberto Medina was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole 3 years to the day after he had violently attacked Del Vesco in that Westwood apartment that she'd shared with her Pi Beta Pi sorority sisters. By this time, he was now 25. He was found guilty of murder, arson, burglary, and animal cruelty in connection with the 2015 death. So when he was in court, he showed no remorse. He showed he showed nothing. He was just, you know when you just see some people, they just give nothing off? He was like
just
that.
Just impassive.
Yeah. Thank you. Another word that would have been nice had it came from my mouth, but clearly not today. It's just, I think it's so good for the family that he was given that punishment because they struggled so much with the horror of what had happened to her. And of course, they had all of her sorority sisters and employers and university lecturers that come forward and speak on her behalf.
How wonderful she was.
And also how much it affected their lives as well. They were all so screwed up over it. Like really, the horror of what had happened, plus in the vicinity to where they were sleeping, or it could have been any of them, right? Really could have been any of them. It was so...
Absolutely. Yeah.
Co-defendant Eric Marquez, 25, the UCLA student, was charged with 1 count of murder, 2 counts of burglary, and a count of being an accessory after the fact. He pleaded guilty to 1 burglary count and the accessory count, and he was sentenced to 2 years and 8 months in prison, which seems strange that you'd get that for murder, but he wasn't actually...
He didn't do the murder. He was an accessory to murder,
Yeah, correct. It doesn't say that here, yeah. And he was credited for time served, and he has been released.
Oh, that's that nice for him.
Yeah. I thought this was sad. Many speakers expressed a sense of guilt for not doing more to prevent their friend's death. One speaker said she regretted that when she heard that police had come to inspect the area, she shrugged it off. So I suspect that was probably Sarah's flatmate. And, the other one who was, she was so upset. She was the one who had two. No, you can't. But the thing is, what would you have walked into? The girl who had the 2 fans on, who was the flatmate. Honestly, I think that if she had have rocked up and gone, I reckon he would have murdered her next. I don't think that...
absolutely.
He was on a mission to finish his work and get out of there. I don't think that they were going to go, I don't want to... But I've done that. I don't want to do it again. I liked this, actually. This was relates to you talking about him being not so bright when it comes to what he had done. Deborah Werbel, Medina's attorney, asked the judge to remove the additional 12 years that the prosecutor asked to be added to the life sentence, if only symbolically, because the murder was out of character for Medina. She said, he entered Del Vesco's apartment without a weapon, so the crime wasn't premeditated, she argued. And the murder was far from sophisticated, she said. It was the opposite of sophisticated, she said, describing how Medina left a trail of evidence from the apartment to his home. Not a smart move on his part. The judge did not grant her request. He added 10 years to Medina's life sentence.
Good on him.
Absolutely. He can't atone for taking Andrea's life, Leslie Del Vesco, that's the mum, said after the sentencing. But he did receive the maximum sentence, so I feel relieved that he can never hurt another person. It's what Andy would have wanted. And the judge basically said, you are very dangerous. We cannot have you out in the community. And he just didn't seem to be that bothered. I'm sure that's not the right word, but he just was impassive, as Schmitty said.
Remorseless.
Exactly. And that is the story of Andrea Del Vesco and her very sad demise at the hands of Alberto Medina and Eric Marquez.
Funky cold
Medina.
Is that what he would be like after rotting in a cave for 3 days, Schmitty.
Funky cold. Yeah, he would.
Yeah, he would.
So shall we sentence? What are your thoughts?
Well, just because it's so fresh in my mind, that defence attorney who thinks that he should get a lighter sentence because it's out of character.
Because he's not a very good murderer.
How many murders do you have to commit before it's in character?
I know, isn't that ridiculous? I thought it was like that. I mean, when I read it, I thought,
yeah, thank you for pointing that little gem out to me. She needs a...
But remember we did one in your cruise crimes about a bloke who raped a girl and got some young boys to rape around as well. It was a rape fest. Yeah. And his family came forward and said, he's a nice man.
When's that on again next, Schmitty?
What, the rape fest? I don't go to that one.
Oh, goodness me.
But yeah, the family was saying, it was out of character for him. Again, how many times do you have to rape before it becomes
a character trait?
Yeah. He's done that again. Yeah.
I think we're going to start saying this is a bit of a character trait of yours now.
Yeah, that's right.
We're up to what, 4?
yeah, not quite yet.
But he's 3 to 4.
He's certainly getting a reputation.
You got to be careful. People will start to pigeonhole you.
Yeah, Swanny, murder's out of character for you and I, so we don't get any.
No, I don't get that, Schmitty. However,
well, yet to be proven, but.
Just very knowledgeable when it comes to all things murder.
Murder. I'm not a murderer.
You do accents well, Schmitty.
Oh, sometimes. The police, honestly, seriously, I think they literally went to that police academy that was made into a series of hilarious films.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
6 minutes, just couldn't be. Well, look, I know it's LA, there's a lot happening. It's LAPD, a lot happening.
They're busy.
They're busy. They're busy. And I think 6 minutes is not enough time to determine, especially in a country where we've covered other sorority killers. Like, it's the kind of place, not to frighten everyone who goes to university and lives on campus, but, it sort of not encourages or invites, but it's a bit of a hunting ground. And that's why universities have so many security guards.
And I think UCLA, they usually have their own police force.
Yeah. So,
but this is off campus.
Yeah, it's in Westwood, but slightly off campus. You're right.
Yeah. So I would kind of go, I wonder, and I'm in two minds about the police. One says absolutely that's not thorough enough. Yeah. The other one is I wonder how often they get called to these apartments.
And wasting their time, nothing's happening.
Yeah. Someone screamed, of course they did. Yeah. And it's always kids just having a little too much fun. And when you turn up and everything's quiet, you go, they've all gone to bed now. It's all over.
And it's rush week. They're all pissed.
On to the next thing.
Yeah.
And I could see that.
Kind of what I was saying is that they're busy. They are, and that sort of shit can happen. Yeah. And interesting that the two more experienced police were the ones who probably said, "Let's go," because they've seen it so many times.
Yeah. But do you think, and this is where I think things could have changed, is if any of them had gone back and spoken to Sarah and said, okay, nothing's going on. And she said, so, you've checked on Andy. Okay. You've seen her, whatever. Oh, no. We just walked past. Yeah. I don't know that I would have been bold enough as a young girl to say to a police officer, well, I think you need to go and can we just check? I
think she might have, though. Remember, on that second call, the thing that stuck in my head was when they said, can you describe? She goes, I've been through this.
Yeah.
And I've done this already. Like she was not having a bar of it. So I think she might have.
She sees one of the policemen when they come back to do the investigation, and she says, you were there. And he says, I was.
Oh, she's observant.
I know. She's good.
God.
What was she studying? Do we know? What's she got
the neighbour. I don't know what Sarah does. No.
That's what I said.
She's a really good detective right now.
That's what I was saying earlier on. Is she used to this, or is she just a natural?
She was doing criminology.
I reckon she's just a natural. So I think the point around them not going to speak to her is a really valid one, because you go there and you go, oh, I can't see anything. Do I just go, or do I go, oh, the person who reported it's just upstairs? I'll just go and say to them, why did you think that scream was worse than anything else? You've got someone there who you can go and talk to. It's not like it's an anonymous report. And she would have said, mate, that is way worse than anything. The dog didn't sound right. She didn't sound right. I never hear that sort of stuff, blah, blah, blah. can you just go and knock on the door? The girls who live with her will be fine with it.
No, I think that's completely correct. And we're very rarely in a situation on Trial by Wine where everybody, except the victim, of course, is still around, or we know what's happened, or the evidence is there. It's all, this one's quite tidy in that respect. Normally we're left so frustrated because we didn't have something answered, we weren't really sure. But, we had, witnesses, we have, the weapon.
I
we have
thought you were
DNA,
doing
all
the
these.
Jizzy Lizzy, the Jizzard Wizard.
That was me. That was
a stabbing motion.
I'm really like a total peanut today. I do apologise.
No, it's kind of fun.
The words just aren't coming. But you know what I mean? I thought that was quite nice in the respect that from a crime, we're so often we're left frustrated by so many things that don't happen, or there's defective detective work or whatever else, and then we don't ever find out, or we think we're going to find out.
Certainly not
now
unsolved.
We know, all right?
I mean, it's
no, exactly.
Crime. It was solved very quickly because he's a complete moron.
Correct.
Probably why he seems so impassive. He only has 2 brain cells. He wasn't going to UCLA, remember? He was going to a different...
he was going to Fresno, Fresno State. He didn't even say what he was studying.
I don't know anything about whether that's a good university or not. Well, look, I think I'm quite happy to... life sentence without parole, that's bad, whatever. An extra 10 years as well, good. But I kind of would like to create a bit of Trial by Wine world where we've got, I don't know, like a stadium or something like that full of giant, very pissed off and singed chihuahuas.
Shay Pandas.
Shay Pandas.
Not eaten any treats for a long time.
Like the Never-Ending Story?
Yeah, Shay Panda, just go for
the luck dragon from the Never-Ending Story.
Oh, no, he's lovely. If you look up Shay Panda, you'll see this thing doesn't look like Shay Panda.
Really?
This thing doesn't look like whatever that thing was called.
Atreyu?
No, that was the boy. That was the boy.
Oh, what was the thing?
Falcor.
Oh, my God, Shay Panda.
Well done.
It looked like my sister's Maltese Terrier, Falcor. Shay Panda, God love her. Yeah, just looked like a bit like Mitzi, but a cream Mitzi. Anyway.
Who's Mitzi?
My brother's dog.
Right.
Anyway, so which is a Chihuahua cross terrier. Very good at ratting, I'll tell you. They're good for that. Anyway,
ratting.
I would put these mutant Shay Pandas.
I think Shay Panda still has an Instagram.
I was going to say, I googled it, and Shay Panda comes up on Instagram.
It does, and it's from, that's freaky, June 2015.
Yeah, so I'm going to put him in a sort of stadium.
Oh, Shay Panda's cute.
With burnt and angry and mutant Shay Pandas. And he's just going to kind of have to survive, run around.
You are Shay Panda.
Be eaten, be mauled. What are you showing us?
Oh, that's a rude one. I saw that one.
Oh, Shay, put it away. Oh, that's a nicer photo than I've seen of
Shay Panda.
I take it back. It's not ugly.
Get on Instagram. She's gorgeous.
Oh, I take it back. He's a cutie.
Oh, no, there's some really cute ones.
Yeah, sorry, no. All right. Sorry, Shay Panda.
Really
that
cute.
one thing that would upset you, though, that when she bought Shay Panda home.
Did you look at the burnt
She called it
one?
her slut pup, and I didn't really like that.
What?
And I can just see she's sunsets her slut. She's in this one here.
Well, I can see
I'm
right
so romantic.
from
It's like hashtag sunsets with slut pup.
Oh,
goodness me. I hope that Andy and Shay
are happy wherever they are.
Panda.
Shay Panda. I can't remember Shay Panda's name. I'm happy to forget that. Oh, Shay Panda.
So what are you saying? You're saying that you want them to be somewhere in the good place.
I just hope they're together in the good place together. Yeah.
Yeah. Old mate's in the Colosseum.
Yeah, Colosseum with mutant Shay Pandas who are very angry and chasing him around and eating bits of him, but not quite killing him, so that we can just continue the torture.
Do they breathe fire?
They can. It's
but
Trial by Wine
not
world.
really, like not kill you instantly fire, but just like singe you.
Yeah, I like it.
Gradually singe
I
you.
was thinking that there had to be a burning element given.
Yeah, burning sensation.
Yes, around his anus.
If only you could get out of here, you could go and see a doctor about that burning sensation. Right. But you, mate, are stuck.
You are stuck here with the mutant Shay Pandas. Yes, that was my...
You're going to die with that burning sensation.
Ooh, that was my...
Funky cold.
Funky cold, nothing, yeah. That's my sentence.
What about that lawyer who thinks that it's out of character?
Maybe he should be in the same place.
Because in some ways, those completely random attacks that happen in people's homes are some of the worst.
No, because it could happen to anyone. It's the violation of it all.
But I guess that the difference is, sometimes you go, well, they shouldn't have been there, or that was a risky thing to do.
They're just at home.
Yeah.
She's in her
Asleep in your
bed
bed.
at home. Like, for God's sakes, what are you supposed to do?
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
So, Clarkie, what are you going to do with that horrible attorney?
With Funky Cold? No, well, I think Funky Cold needs to actually be cold and funky.
Yeah, okay. Rotten in a box.
So there's probably a number of ways to do that, but maybe after your punishment, we just take him somewhere like a cave and leave him there for a week or so to get
nice and cold and funky, and then we take him out and chase him with the dogs and burns him again.
Well, and then no, because he'll be dead then. But you could always reincarnate him.
Big on resurrection so that we can torture him again.
Yeah. But I think the lawyer then needs to spend some time with him once he's cold and funky.
What, just in a cave with a dead person?
Correct. So she can be cold and smell his funky.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Just because that's out of character. What even does that mean? In a context of a murder, it's out of character to go into someone's home, rape them, stab them 19 times, set the room, set the room on fire. I mean, it might be out of character, but he's freaking done
I think setting the room
crazy
on fire
over the
was
top
something
job.
he does all the time.
That bit was within character.
Yeah, that was fine.
And 11 stabs, I'm okay with it. 19, that's out of character.
Disgusting. Yeah.
Go and smell his cold funk, lady.
Okay. Ooh. All right. And Swanny, you're just sending them to the good place, or?
I find this tricky because with Alberto Medina, I don't really know anything about him still. Do you know what I mean? There's still nothing that tells me why he thought that was an appropriate response to a burgle gone wrong. You know what I mean? It just feels like this goes to the nth degree. And then, so what am I left to work with? You murdered someone for no reason, just because you were going to go and steal a Sonos speaker. It's not like you're doing a big robbery to get something worthwhile, and a crappy computer and a bottle of grog. That's what they've done across the road. What do you think she's going to have? Like, there was
pair of underpants and a kitchen knife.
So random and unnecessary.
I just don't get it. So I don't really have a point where I can go, right, well, that's what I want to focus in on with him. I just think, wow, I think the only thing I was trying to introduce, which is a bit of a stretch, was I know that it's been sort of outlawed because it's so dreadful, which, I don't know if it's outlawed, that's not quite the right word, but then again, there hasn't been a right word the whole afternoon, has there? Hazing, when they have these rituals.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I don't know that they're allowed to do it anymore. I'm pretty sure they're not, because it just always goes wrong. And it's all about humiliating people, embarrassing them, making them be like...
Such fun.
Horrendous, right?
The day it works,
awful. Perhaps there could be some hazing for Alberto Medina and Eric Marquez, and just so that they would feel a degree of...
shame.
Terror and shame and fear and all of the things that poor Andy and... even the people that are associated with her, friends and colleagues and just the cohort that went through at the same time, must have been absolutely horrendous to have to go through something like that. And I really feel for her family.
Yeah.
Her family just looks so gorgeous. They were beautiful family. And look, all these photos of them on holidays, really, mum and dad, older brother, Andy, and little sister out
so
doing
lovely,
things.
yeah.
They weren't contrived. They didn't look like they were contrived anyway. They just looked like really nice, good people living a good life, helping people, having great friendships, and totally stolen. And I just find it really heartbreaking. Her mother, oh God, her dad was I guess it was a documentary they watched. The dad didn't even feature, didn't even speak. It was just the mum, and the mum actually looks like a different person when you see some of the photos. Just the effect that it has on somebody is...
Yeah, it's awful when you see that, isn't it?
Is.
And they don't recover.
No, she looked like a different person.
I was just going to say that comment around, and instead our daughter has to be identified by her dental records. Yep. The trauma that's clearly playing, caused her. Ugh.
Yeah. Isn't it? This will be the last little thing I say, but I do find, in the strangest way, this comfort in Shay Panda being with her, and at least so that the mum thinks that she's got company and that she hasn't left on her own. If Shay Panda and Andy were so close. I think that is a really nice thing to choose to think. And I think that really sort of touched me. And I thought, oh my God, that made me cry that bit when I saw that. It was like them talking about saying goodbye and go and give Andy a kiss. And I was like, oh my God, you just don't want your children to be murdered or set alight. And then I think, well, at least if you think they've got their beloved pet with them, it's something, right? You'd look for these little somethings. Anyway, on that note,
cheery. I'll just say I'm not happy with the media for putting out information that wasn't relevant to the case.
Yeah.
That besmirched. There's that word again for you, Clarkie.
Yeah.
Because they would have been digging, right?
Of Andy.
What can we say about her?
I mean, I get that you're an investigative journalist, but let the actual investigators work out what's happening here and just report the facts.
If it was a drug-related crime, then report that. Don't go looking.
Exactly. Agreed. Yeah. All right. Well, Swanny's just straightening her papers again.
Sorry.
Good story. Very sad, but well told.
Yeah, well done.
So good on you, Swanny. And as we say every week, miss you already.
See you next time. Ciao.
Ta-ta now.
Bye. Thanks for listening to Trial by Wine. You can contact us at trialbywine@gmail.com. Please rate, review and subscribe to Trial by Wine on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to support us, you can become a patron at www.patreon.com, Trial by Wine, or visit our website www.trialbywine.com to donate to us. Your support will help us cover many more cases and apply wacky sentences. We really appreciate you listening and hope you tell everyone about us. Our cover art is by John Christo and music is by Beauchamp from pixabay.com.